It begins not with a roar or a trumpet, but a whisper, a shiver in the tall grass. A breeze, carrying the distant breath of rain from hundreds of kilometers away, curls through the savannah like a ghost. It coils past brittle trees and cracked riverbeds, through the sleeping nostrils of wildebeest, zebras, gazelles, and wakes something ancient. Not fear, not hunger, something older, a memory written in bone and blood. They lift their heads in unison, sniffing the sky like scholars reading prophecy. The rain hasn't fallen here yet, but the storm is calling them. The first to move are often the most ragged, the ones with the longest memories. They stretch stiff legs, test the wind again, and begin walking not toward anything visible, but toward something they feel. The ground is still dry, but their hooves fall with purpose, pressing into the dust with a rhythm older than empires. One moves, then two, then hundreds, and by the time the golden sun peels itself from the horizon, the plains are humming with motion. Not chaotic, not frenzied, but persistent, relentless. The great migration has begun, not with drama, but with decision. The savannah, for a moment, seems to exhale. Birds rise startled from acacia trees, insects abandon their stalks, and lions blink from their slumber. No alarm is sounded, yet every predator senses the tremble underfoot. It's not just wildebeest, it's opportunity on legs, protein on mass. A living river of meat heading north, one hesitant step at a time. But they are not running, not yet. The pace is slow at first, like the early notes of a song building toward crescendo. Amid this surge of life, miracles and tragedies play out in miniature. Calves are born standing into dust clouds, their mothers still slick with afterbirth, already nudging them upright. They wobble like reeds in a storm, collapsing repeatedly until instinct becomes action. The stronger ones run within minutes. The weaker ones, well, the weak don't get names here. Survival doesn't pause for applause. It marches forward. Zebras weave in, their stripes catching the morning light like flickering barcodes. They don't follow the wildebeest out of kinship. It's mutual manipulation, a traveling truce. Zebras see danger sooner, wildebeest hear it sooner. Together they make fewer mistakes. At least that's the theory. Nature loves a loophole, and soon enough we'll meet the specialists who exploit it. But for now, the herds stretch wider by the hour, a growing wave across the Tanzanian plains. There's a smell in the air now, not just of distant rain, but of motion. The sweat of 1,000 bodies, the musk of open wounds, the acrid tang of dung and crushed grass. Overhead, vultures begin to circle, not because they see death, but because they've memorized the script. Where this many animals gather, something will die, and the vultures, they're just punctual. By midday, the first obstacles emerge. Dry riverbeds littered with jagged rocks, thorn bushes thick enough to skin a flank, and stretches of cracked earth hot enough to blister hooves. This journey is not a guided tour, it's a trial. Every few kilometers, something is lost. A newborn that strayed, an elder too slow, a mother who lingered too long to nuzzle. Life here doesn't end in battles and heroics. It ends in split-second decisions, wrong turns, and the simple cruelty of being left behind. But there are strange allies on this path too. Birds perch on backs like hitchhikers, plucking parasites and whispering warnings in body language. Dung beetles scramble to make use of every drop that falls, crafting perfect spheres from imperfection and rolling them like trophies into burrows. Even the grass has its role. Triggered by hooves and waste, it begins to grow back faster, greedily pulling nitrogen from the chaos into green revival. The savannah is not just a stage for migration, it's an accomplice. The pace quickens. Clouds gather like a prophecy fulfilled. Thunder booms not overhead but far away, and yet it jolts the herds like an electric signal. The scent of wet soil rides the wind now, petrichor, the perfume of rebirth. The grass ahead is greener, lusher, kissed by early rains. It smells like hope, and hope here smells like food. Suddenly the herd is no longer walking, it's moving. A deep, resonant rumble begins to rise, not from above, but below. Hooves strike in harmony, hundreds of thousands of drumming feet, shaking the ground like tectonic plates shifting. Dust clouds bloom in their wake, blotting out the lower sun. Ears back, eyes forward, muscles primed, they are running, not in panic, but in purpose. This is no mindless stampede. It is a race against starvation, dehydration, and every ambush hiding in the tall grass. And yet as they thunder forward, not everything is grim. Young calves leap for no reason other than joy. Zebras whinny in what sounds like laughter. The ground might shake, but above it all, a flock of crowned cranes glides gracefully, unbothered by the noise, as if to remind us that elegance still lives in this madness. Even in the dust, beauty finds a way. But beauty is not mercy. Just ahead, at a narrow channel where cracked earth gives way to water, the first test waits. Not crocodiles, not yet, but hesitation. The herd slows. The leaders pause. The younger ones press forward, unsure. The thunder fades to a murmur. And in that silence, every eye scans the banks. Every nose twitches. Is it safe? Who will go first? And what waits beneath the surface? Long before the first roar splits the air, before a single claw touches hide or hoof, the predators are already awake. Not just in body, but in mind. Alert, calculating, watching from the fringe of the rising dust. While the wildebeest march with blind conviction, the predators move like whispers in tall grass, shadows that never sleep, ghosts written in muscle and silence. This is not a spontaneous hunt. It's an ancient ritual performed on schedule, a synchronized dance between the eaters and the eaten. And every predator knows their part in the script. The lions stir first, not the shaggy-maned kings that Hollywood loves, but the real workers of the pride, the lionesses, lean, scarred, patient. Their bellies are empty, their paws cracked from dry ground, but their eyes gleam with anticipation. This is what they wait for all year, the arrival of prey too plentiful to count, too desperate to scatter, and often too exhausted to flee. The lionesses rise with a grace that belies their power and stretch in near silence, leaving behind cubs hidden in shade like secrets buried in golden grass. One by one, they melt into the terrain, low to the earth, moving not toward the herd but alongside it, like shadows clinging to the edge of light. But lions are not alone in their hunger. Behind them, hyenas awaken, not with stealth, but with noise. Their cackles split the air like cracked bone, their gait awkward and mechanical, as though evolution forgot to fine-tune their design. Yet beneath the comedy of their movements lies lethal coordination. Hyenas are not scavengers waiting for leftovers, they are frontline assassins. Their jaws can crush femurs, their stamina outlasts most prey, and their social structure makes them one of Africa's most underrated hunters. They don't stalk, they test, probe, nip at the flanks. And when panic sets in, they surge like piranhas in open air. Further back, where the thickets cast longer shadows, something even quieter prowls. Leopards. Solitary, sculpted in silence, and draped in night's pattern, they do not follow the herds in the open. Instead, they trace their fringes like watchful gods, looking not for crowds, but for chaos. A calf separated, a mother distracted, a monkey shrieking overhead. To a leopard, the migration is not a stampede. It's a buffet served in single portions, hidden behind the veil of confusion. Their attacks are rarely witnessed, but the aftermath is undeniable. A throat torn in seconds, a limp body dragged vertically into the boughs of a tree, as if the forest itself had swallowed the unlucky. And then, almost comically small by comparison, come the jackals. Quick-footed opportunists with sharp eyes and sharper attitudes. They do not challenge, they capitalize. One lion's failed ambush can become a jackal's jackpot. A foiled cheetah chase leaves scraps that the jackals will find within minutes. They seem to know where to be, not by smell or sound, but by some invisible instinct that always places them one carcass away from dinner. While the giants battle for supremacy, these sly figures stitch the ecosystem together, cleaning, clearing, and cackling at the absurdity of it all. Together, this cast of carnivores creates an invisible perimeter around the herd. Not always attacking, often just waiting, watching, measuring distance, direction, timing. The wildebeest, for all their numbers, move like one great blind beast, unaware that it is being watched from every direction. Each predator uses the herd differently. Some for ambush, some for endurance, others for confusion. This isn't a chaotic feeding frenzy, it's ecological choreography. Yet, even within this circle of hunger, surprises unfold. A lion may charge too early, spooked by a shifting breeze. A young cheetah, emboldened by hunger, might dart into the open only to be outpaced by its own hesitation. Hyenas clash with lions at a kill site, their numbers tipping the scales in favor of chaos. A crocodile ambush fails because a wildebeest miraculously trips in the right direction instead of the wrong. These are the moments where survival is decided not by strength, but by chance wearing the mask of instinct. And then the sun dips. The colors of the plains melt from gold to blood orange to bruised purple. Light fades, but the hunt sharpens. Night is not a curtain, it is a trigger. Predators born in shadows grow more confident with each falling degree. Lions now rise fully from cover. Their eyes reflect like twin moons. The herd feels the shift too. Ears twitch, heads rise. They know what night brings. The thunder of hooves begins again, not from hope this time, but from fear. In the distance you might expect to hear snarls or screams, but often you hear nothing. Death here is silent, fast, and terribly precise. A lion's charge lasts seconds. A neck is clamped. Silence returns. The herd moves on. One less face in the crowd, and barely a ripple left behind. Predators don't always need to win every night. They just need to win enough. What is perhaps most remarkable and most humbling is that these killers, these so-called villains of the savannah, are not driven by malice. They are mothers, fathers, providers. Every kill funds the future of cubs hidden in gullies, of pups in dens. Even the jackals carry meat back to unseen mouths. The drama of the chase may be ruthless, but it is never cruel. Cruelty requires intention. This is necessity shaped by nature's hand. And as the first kill of the night is consumed, ribs cracking under teeth, blood steaming in the cool air, another truth reveals itself. Predators are the pulse of this land. Without them, the migration would grow unchecked. Grasslands would vanish. Disease would spread. The death they deal is not an end, it is a beginning. A grim gift that feeds the soil, that balances the herd, that carves strength from weakness and keeps evolution's wheels turning. But balance, as always, is fragile. Somewhere ahead, an unexpected alliance is brewing. Not among predators, but among prey. A growing restlessness stirs among zebras and wildebeest, a behavioral shift whispered across thousands of hooves. For every ambush, there is an escape. For every stalker, a countermove. And for every predator, eventually, a price to pay. The shadows may rule the night, but the day still belongs to the herds. And as sunrise smears orange across the sky once again, another test awaits. A river coiled like a serpent in their path, teeth hidden beneath the surface. What waits there has not moved in days. It doesn't need to. The migration is coming to it. There are moments in nature so raw, so thunderous with life and death, that they etch themselves into the very bones of the land. The Mara River crossing is one such moment. The savannah narrows here, funneling 1 million lives toward one thin ribbon of brown water, deceptively quiet at dawn. Its surface glints in the morning light like polished glass, calm and harmless, a mirror with no hint of the teeth below. But beneath that glass lies a graveyard, a liquid trapdoor. And the herds? They're about to knock. The sound arrives before the sight, a low, rumbling quake beneath the soles of the earth, like 1,000 beating war drums growing closer. The ground trembles not violently but rhythmically, like the pulse of something ancient and determined. A dark cloud of dust rises along the southern ridge as tens of thousands of wildebeest and zebras push forward, pressed together by instinct and momentum, their numbers so vast the landscape itself seems to sway beneath them. From above, they resemble a moving bruise across the plains, swelling toward the riverbank in a single, unstoppable tide. And yet when they reach the edge, they halt. What lies ahead is no longer land. It's uncertainty, shimmering and scentless. The Mara is narrow, maybe 20 or 30 meters across, but its reputation stretches far beyond its banks. No animal born on these plains forgets what waits in the water. Patience sharpened by hunger. The herds know the stories, encoded into their DNA. The first one in is the first one bitten. The first one bitten is rarely the last. A long silence settles over the riverbank, broken only by the muffled grunts and shifting hooves of the front line. A zebra steps forward, then freezes, ears twitching, nose high. The others watch, breathing in the breeze for danger, listening for the faint splash that means ambush. Behind them, pressure builds. The back of the herd pushes forward, unaware or uncaring of the hesitation ahead. Panic is not a shout here, it's a shove. And finally, as if nudged by fate, a young wildebeest stumbles forward, tumbles into the water, and fate answers. The river erupts. The plunge of a single animal unlocks the dam. In seconds, the hesitation turns into hysteria. Bodies tumble in like a cascade of muscle and fear. Water churns into froth. Hooves kick up spray, and the air fills with the shrill screams of creatures suddenly realizing they are too deep to turn back. They swim not in graceful arcs, but in frantic surges, eyes wide, legs kicking blindly below the surface. It is not a crossing, it is a battle, and for many it is already lost. Beneath the chaos, the true rulers of this arena emerge from the silt like phantoms. Crocodiles, some older than the wildebeest's bloodline, glide forward with eerie calm. They do not charge, they select. Each one waits for that single mistake, a slip, a cramp, a hesitation. A moment of slow is all they need. One locks eyes on a calf paddling clumsily near its mother. Without a ripple, it vanishes below. Then a sudden burst of motion. Jaws erupt from the deep clamp around the calf's belly and twist. A single rotation, a sickening spiral, and the river claims its prize. These are not mindless monsters. They are strategists. Crocodiles can fast for months, biding their time in cold-blooded stillness, only to unleash a precision strike so swift it escapes the eye. They don't just lunge, they plan. Some crocodiles position themselves near bends in the river, where current slows victims down. Others anchor themselves against rocks, using the flow itself to help drown prey. This is not brute force. This is ambush artistry sculpted by millennia of refinement. Yet not every death comes from teeth. The Mara takes many without the help of a predator. Hooves slip on slick stone. Calves vanish beneath larger bodies. Some animals are crushed before they even leave the shore, trampled under the weight of urgency. The water, now thick with blood and silt, becomes a soup of terror and mud. Every second is a gamble, every crossing a lottery, and in the madness, nature throws in a few curveballs just for the irony. A crocodile, aiming for a wildebeest, misjudges and is kicked square in the snout. Stunned, it drifts backward, blinking in confusion. A zebra, cornered in the water, spins mid-kick and manages to climb onto a floating log, balancing there like some circus act of desperation. Even chaos, it seems, has room for absurdity. Then, like all storms, the crossing begins to wane. The first wave reaches the far bank, muddy, breathless, wide-eyed. Survivors scramble up the steep slope, legs trembling, flanks torn and slick with blood, but alive. They shake, they wheeze, and they move forward, pulled by the same invisible thread that drew them here. No pause, no moment of silence. There is no time to mourn the ones who didn't make it. Grief is a luxury the migration cannot afford, and still they come. Thousands more press forward, unwilling to break the chain, driven by something beyond logic. From the air, the river is now two streaks, one of motion, one of stillness. The living climb out, the dead drift below. And among them, the crocodiles sink once more to the riverbed, jaws full, hearts slow, waiting for the next surge. It would be easy to paint this moment as savage, to assign cruelty to the river or malice to the crocodiles. But the Mara is not cruel. It is consistent. It gives as much as it takes. The floodwaters that drown the young also feed the land. The crocodiles that devour the weak also cull the sick, preventing disease from sweeping the plains. Death here is not punishment. It is a transaction. A toll paid in flesh for passage into greener lands. Yet even as the last tail vanishes into the brush, the story isn't over. The Mara may be behind them, but ahead lies a different kind of threat. The predators have crossed too, some on foot, some by scent trails. And others, the ones you rarely see coming, are already hiding in plain sight. Above the dust and thunder, far from the trampling hooves and snapping jaws, a different world unfolds. Silent, patient, and piercingly observant. While the plains below seethe with chaos, the sky remains detached, a boundless ceiling of cobalt blue. But don't let the calm fool you. The air is no sanctuary. It is a hunting ground, and death wears wings. Long before the herds arrive at their next resting place, the sky already knows, not by sound or smell, but by sight. The first to appear are the vultures, silhouettes etched like ancient runes against the sun. They spiral in loose circles, their wings outstretched like sails, effortlessly surfing the thermal winds. Their movements are neither frantic nor aimless. Each loop narrows the distance. Each glide draws closer to a promise: blood. From above, a single corpse becomes a signal, not just to one species, but to an entire airborne community of opportunists. Vultures see 5 times farther than humans and can spot a carcass from over 6 kilometers away. But perhaps more impressive is their diplomacy. The sky may look empty, but it holds a caste system written in feathers. White-backed vultures arrive first, frenetic, scrappy, and loud, squabbling like unruly diners at a buffet's opening bell. But then come the heavyweights. Lappet-faced vultures descend with the gravitas of bouncers, their enormous beaks capable of tearing through hides even hyenas hesitate to touch. These are not just scavengers, they are deconstructors, nature's cleanup crew with a surgical license. Still, the vultures are not the only ones that ride the wind. From the high thermals over the escarpment, something else watches, quieter, deadlier, and far more precise. The martial eagle. Broad-winged and silent, it glides not for carrion, but for living prey. Below, a young impala strays a few meters from its mother, pausing to sniff at a fly. The eagle folds its wings and drops like a missile. There is no warning, no time to flee. 1 second, the sky is empty. The next, talons the size of meat hooks crush the skull with terrifying finality. Martial eagles hunt like gods, seen only when it is far too late to resist. Elsewhere, another drama unfolds. A newborn wildebeest calf, still damp with birth, struggles to find its footing. It wobbles unsure, tethered to its mother by scent and soft cries. But above them, a tawny eagle circles, calculating. It knows the calf won't make it. Maybe it's too small. Maybe the mother is too weak to defend. In any case, the eagle won't wait to find out. It swoops low, testing. Not attacking, just measuring. The next pass might be fatal or not. The sky is full of watchers, but not all of them are killers. Some are just waiting for someone else to do the dirty work. And then, fluttering awkwardly between all this grandeur, come the oxpeckers. Clumsy, red-beaked and loud, they bounce from zebra to buffalo like gossiping hitchhikers. At first glance, they seem harmless, comic relief in a story filled with death. But these birds have a darker side. They don't just pick parasites off their hosts, they open wounds to drink blood. A zebra might tolerate it for a while until a tiny beak pecks the same spot one too many times. This cleaning service is part nurse, part vampire. In nature, roles are rarely pure. And then, of course, come the storks. Yes, storks. Not all airborne killers are elegant or expected. The marabou stork, for instance, is nature's undertaker. Standing over a meter tall, bald-headed and ghastly, it stalks kill sites like a funeral director checking the guest list. But when it strikes, it's swift and brutal, often gulping entrails whole before smaller vultures even land. It's a bird that looks like it escaped from a horror film and behaves accordingly. Yet amid this cast of winged reapers, the most shocking moments come not from the expected, but the absurd. A fish eagle, perched on a snag above a shallow stream, dives not for fish, but for a snake writhing too close to a carcass. In one blur of white feathers and golden talons, it yanks the serpent skyward, wrapping it like a ribbon around its prey. Later, a bateleur eagle performs a mid-air courtship display so dramatic it frightens a flock of starlings into a panic, causing a stampede below that nearly ends with a lion ambush. In the aerial theater of the Mara, the sky isn't just watching the drama. Sometimes it directs it. Perhaps what's most fascinating is that the skies operate on a completely different tempo. Predators on the ground burn calories in high-stakes chases, every kill a sprint or a struggle. But raptors wait. They read thermals like musicians reading music, drifting for hours until a single shadow shifts in just the wrong direction. Their patience is their weapon. And when they move, it is with a purpose so lethal, so sudden, it feels like time hiccups. The savanna below barely acknowledges these aerial interventions. To the herds, the sky is often invisible, until it's not. Until a calf disappears, or a flash of wings sends flocks scattering in every direction. The grass may hide lions, but the sky hides something worse, the illusion of safety. And as the migration pushes forward, pressing deeper into unfamiliar lands, new dangers begin to stir. With every step, they invite not just predators and parasites, but something far more insidious. Because up ahead lies the calving grounds, a place where birth and blood mix freely, and survival depends not on who is fastest, but on who can stand at all. The Serengeti's short grass plains stretch wide under a sky so open it feels almost merciless, a giant blue eye watching everything unfold with neither favor nor judgment. The air here carries a sharp tang of iron-rich soil mixed with the faint sweetness of acacia blossoms. It is early morning, and mist clings stubbornly to the lowlands, drifting across the grass like the last sigh of night. But beneath this soft veil, something immense is stirring. Here, on these open plains baked flat by sun and trampled by generations, nature performs one of its most astonishing sleights of hand. In just a matter of weeks, nearly 500,000 wildebeest will be born, not scattered across months like in most mammalian species, but detonated into existence in a synchronized explosion of life. The timing is evolutionary poetry. Calving en masse overwhelms the predators. When 50 calves are born in an hour, only a few are likely to be caught. Safety, in this case, is found in abundance. But for each individual calf, the odds are still treacherously thin. The first contractions begin before sunrise. A female wildebeest, belly taut and heavy with promise, slows her pace just slightly, stepping away from the herd like a single note falling out of rhythm with a symphony. Her legs tremble, her breath comes fast. In the high grass behind her, predators already stir, noses twitching at the scent of vulnerability. But she has no time for fear. With a groan that carries no ceremony, only necessity, she lowers herself and begins to push. Birth comes swiftly on these plains. It must. A wildebeest calf is born in under 10 minutes, its body slick and steaming in the cool dawn air. But there is no rest, no pause to celebrate. The mother immediately turns and begins licking the calf, urging it to move. Her tongue is not just cleaning, it's stimulating blood flow, warming muscles, and wiping away the scent of amniotic fluid that could draw death from a mile away. The calf blinks, stumbles, rights itself, then collapses, again and again, until on its fourth attempt, it finds its legs. By 15 minutes old, it is running. Awkward, yes, more like skipping than sprinting, but moving nonetheless. These calves are born with hooves that seem 2 sizes too large and legs that bend like they're made of soft clay. But within an hour, they can gallop alongside the herd. They must. On this stage, to be slow is to be gone. Some aren't so lucky. A younger mother, confused or exhausted, wanders away before her calf is fully alert. The calf tries to follow, calling out in a trembling bleat, but it sways like a reed and falls again. Behind it, the grass moves, not from wind, but from something lower and smoother. A cheetah. Of all the predators drawn to the calving fields, cheetahs are the most surgical. Their approach is not brute force like lions, nor methodical like hyenas. They are sprinters of violence, tuned for bursts of breathtaking speed and pinpoint accuracy. This particular cheetah, a mother herself, has been watching for hours, waiting not for the largest meal, but the most separated. And now, without fanfare or noise, she explodes into motion, a blur of spots and muscle, trailing a wake of dust. The calf barely has time to register the sound before it is struck, and the grass falls still once more. Elsewhere, the predators are learning new tricks. Jackals team up in pairs to corner calves, yipping with glee when a mother turns her back. Even baboons, not traditionally considered hunters here, have been seen attacking the smallest calves, their fingers shockingly adept at clamping shut the delicate throat of something far younger and weaker. The calving fields are not a nursery, they are a buffet. But not every tale ends in tragedy. For every predator that succeeds, 5 fail. A cheetah may miss its sprint and go hungry for days. A lion may pounce too soon and be seen. A jackal may overestimate its strength and be kicked skyward by an angry mother. And when wildebeest gather, hundreds of them encircling a calf in a storm of hooves, even the fiercest predator hesitates. There is unity in panic, and sometimes panic is enough. Among this chaos, one might expect disorder, but the wildebeest follow an astonishing internal choreography. Newborns identify their mothers not by smell, but by sound, learning their mother's distinct grunt within hours. And mothers in turn can recognize their calf's voice among thousands. This audio signature becomes a lifeline as herds blend and reform, a password in a crowd that refuses to stop moving. Zebras, meanwhile, give birth less frantically, but no less dramatically. Their foals arrive standing, long-legged and wide-eyed, often minutes before a passing lioness is spotted. There's an elegance to zebra births, a kind of quiet dignity, until the hyenas show up. Then it's all biting and braying and the strange, high-pitched scream of prey that suddenly realizes it's being watched by someone who isn't clapping. Ironically, the very predators that decimate the newborns also protect them, indirectly. Without lions, hyenas, and cheetahs thinning the numbers, the grass would vanish under the pressure of hooves, water would dry up from overpopulation, and starvation would become a greater killer than teeth. The calving fields are cruel, but they are also sustainable. Every death feeds life elsewhere. Every loss writes balance into the land. Still, not all threats walk or run. At midday, vultures arrive, not to hunt but to claim. They drop from thermals like falling leaves, drawn to the smallest change in temperature or the glint of blood on a leaf. Where a calf has died, they gather within minutes. And not just vultures. The marabou storks, those haunted-looking undertakers of the plains, saunter in to pick apart the remains with mechanical precision. Even dung beetles benefit, turning tragedy into treasure, rolling away spheres of opportunity to hatch their next generation in the shade of someone else's failure. And above it all, the skies remain clear. The storms that once lured the herds north have passed, but a new tension gathers, not in clouds, but in instinct, because soon the short grass will dry. The calves that survive will grow stronger. The predators will grow hungrier. And the river, yes, that river, is not behind them this time. It lies ahead, again, always ahead. But before the journey resumes, there's another secret on these plains. Something small, something hidden in plain sight. For while most eyes follow the giants of hoof and claw, few notice the stowaways, creatures who ride this migration not to feed, but to thrive. Zoom in, closer than hoofbeats, closer than breath, closer still, until the dust itself seems to crawl. Beneath the crashing drama of lions and herds, past the grand operatics of stampedes and river crossings, there exists another world, silent, microscopic, and relentless. A world not measured in meters, but in microns. Welcome to the undercurrent of the Great Migration. The stowaways, the infiltrators, the ones who do not chase or roar, but ride and burrow. They are not seen in panoramas, but they shape every chapter. The first to announce their presence are the flies. Not just any flies, but the notorious tsetse. They move like heat-seeking missiles, zeroing in on warmth, breath, motion. With wings that hum in a maddening pitch and a bite that drills deep enough to draw blood through fur, the tsetse is not merely annoying, it is dangerous. These flies carry sleeping sickness, a disease that doesn't just drowse its victims, but eventually kills them. In cattle, it's known as nagana, a name that sounds soft, but bleeds productivity, strength, and life from herds as if siphoning vitality straight through the bloodstream. What makes the tsetse especially cunning is its patience. It doesn't kill in a single sting. It weakens, slows, and in the migration, to be slowed is to be served. But for every parasite that burrows in, there's one rolling away. Enter the dung beetles, those tiny janitors of the savannah, whose profession is as bizarre as it is essential. To them, the migration is a never-ending festival of opportunity. Millions of piles dropped fresh daily, each a golden ticket. The beetles dive headfirst into the steaming leftovers, carving out perfect spheres like sculptors of waste. These balls are not random. They are designed to be rolled away, buried, and used as nurseries for future generations. In fact, a single dung ball can house several eggs, each larva feeding in the darkness on what might be the most disgusting, yet nutritionally dense baby food in the natural world. And yet there's elegance in their absurdity. Dung beetles are celestial navigators, using the Milky Way itself to orient their rollings. At night, they align their path with the stars. During the day, they use polarized light patterns in the sky invisible to human eyes. This tiny bug, elbow-deep in feces, possesses a navigation system so advanced it could put some GPS devices to shame. While wildebeest travel by scent and zebras by memory, the beetle rolls by galaxy. Still deeper, another threat lurks, unseen but no less lethal, the blood parasites. Hidden within the very bodies of the herd, these organisms ride silently through organs and veins, transmitted by the bite of a fly, a tick, or even a mosquito. Babesia, Theileria, trypanosomes, names that sound like spells but act more like curses. These invaders replicate quietly, causing fever, lethargy, disorientation. And here's the cruel irony. Predators rarely catch the weak because they can't run. Instead, they catch the sick because they run. The parasite, in its stealth, accelerates the cycle of natural selection. The host becomes a sacrifice, and the predator becomes an unwitting cleaner. Nature, ever efficient, recycles its errors. Not every insect in this ecosystem is parasitic, however. Some are pilgrims in their own right. Butterflies, strangely, often follow the herds too, drawn by the salts in the dung, the moisture from trampled grass, and the ever-turning earth. They flutter like confetti over battlefields, oblivious or indifferent to the violence below. At times, a wildebeest will snort as one lands on its back, as if insulted by the audacity of something so fragile perched atop something so hunted. And yet these butterflies serve a purpose, pollinating the disturbed lands, sowing life in the very footprints of death. Closer to the skin, another army marches. Ticks. Embedded in fur, hidden in armpits, behind ears, between toes, they are the slowest vampires of the plains. They cling with legs barbed like grappling hooks and drink with mouthparts shaped like barbed swords. And while one tick may seem insignificant, hundreds can debilitate. Even lions, often thought untouchable, bear them like scars. Some older cats are covered in clusters of ticks on their flanks, their necks, even the rims of their eyes. It's not the big battles that age them. It's the small ones that never stop. And yet, perhaps the most unnerving stowaway of all lives, not on the outside of the animal, but within. Goot worms, invisible to the naked eye, flourish in the intestines of wildebeest and zebra alike. Some reduce the absorption of nutrients, others cause dehydration, and some simply wait, waiting for their host to be eaten, so they can continue their cycle inside a new predator. Imagine it, a parasite inside a wildebeest, inside a lion, inside the soil again, a nesting doll of survival, played out in secret. It's a strange paradox that while every predator on the plains sharpens teeth and claws to catch the herd, the insects simply ride them. They don't need to kill, they live on the constant motion. Some even depend on the migration to complete their own life cycles. If the wildebeest stopped moving, so would the breeding of countless insect species. The migration is not just a spectacle of hoof and horn, it is a floating continent of micro-ecosystems, an ark of soil dwellers, winged lurkers, and intestinal ghosts all voyaging toward survival. And just as we begin to think we've uncovered every layer, another twist appears, one where insect and predator collide. There's a wasp here, rarely noticed, that lays its eggs inside the larvae of dung beetles. It stings, injects, and walks away. The beetle larva then grows, not knowing it's been claimed. When it finally pupates, instead of beetle wings, a wasp bursts from its shell, like a secret that took weeks to reveal itself. Insects killing insects to ride on mammals that flee from cats while nourishing birds that clean them. This is not a food chain. It is a tapestry woven so tightly, pulling one thread risks unraveling it all. But the migration continues, none the wiser. The wildebeest scratch at their flanks, flick their tails, stomp at clouds of flies. Annoyance perhaps, but not panic. They do not know what rides them, what saps them, what lives because they do. And yet, every hoofprint they leave behind feeds 100 unseen mouths. The air thickens once again. A storm brews far ahead. Not of weather, but of tension. The herds have moved far, but water is growing scarce. Insects and parasites may be small, but thirst is a more immediate killer. And where water pools on the savannah, predators gather like ghosts returning to old battlegrounds. The herd will soon need to make a choice. Turn back, move forward, or risk it all for a mouthful of water. Across the plains, from horizon to haze, a strange duet unfolds. It's not sung, but marched. Hooves in synchronized dissonance, moving in unison but never quite in harmony. Zebras and wildebeest, two species locked together by necessity, trudge side by side, sniffing the same dust, chewing the same grass, and dodging the same predators. But to call this a friendship would be generous. This is an alliance born of desperation, stitched together not by affection, but by strategy. As the sun casts long amber streaks over the land, the herds appear almost choreographed. Zebras at the front, wildebeest in endless waves behind, like stripes leading shadows. It's a formation honed over centuries. Zebras, with their superior eyesight and broader heads, scan the horizon for danger with the vigilance of seasoned sentries. Wildebeest, in contrast, possess an uncanny sense of smell and a herd instinct so deeply ingrained they can pivot en masse at the twitch of a tail. Together, they form a sensory unit more sophisticated than most military patrols. But cooperation in the wild is always laced with tension. Because while they rely on each other for survival, trust is a luxury neither can afford. Zebras, ever the more deliberate of the two, graze with the arrogance of animals who know they're smarter than their neighbors. They pause to think, to analyze, to argue over who gets which patch of grass. Wildebeest, by comparison, behave like the impatient little brothers of the savannah, twitchy, impulsive, and inclined to run before asking questions. When panic strikes, zebras assess. Wildebeest flee, and therein lies the problem. It begins subtly, as it always does. A gust of wind bends the grass the wrong way. A distant vulture flaps low enough to cast a shadow. One wildebeest startles, perhaps remembering the river or simply feeling a twinge of unease, and without further investigation, bolts. Within seconds, 100 more follow, creating a ripple of thunder that surges through the herd like a contagious spasm. The zebras, caught in the stampede's outer orbit, lift their heads in collective annoyance. Here it comes again. The wildebeest are running from nothing, but the zebras, despite their better judgment, must move too. Because even if the threat is imagined, the stampede is not, and being trampled by your allies is an equally unfortunate way to die. What unfolds next is not chaos, but choreography, a rough, dusty ballet of shifting roles and silent calculations. As the panic settles, the herds reorganize. Zebras move toward the front again, seizing the lead with silent indignation, reclaiming their place as navigators. The wildebeest fall back, panting, wide-eyed, ready to do it all over again. These roles are not assigned but understood, and yet they are not fixed. Sometimes the betrayal comes from the stripes. In rare moments, zebras have been seen to lead wildebeest straight into trouble, not out of malice but out of preference. A waterhole that's more favorable to them, a grazing patch they'd rather keep. With no verbal warning, they veer off, cutting a sharp turn. The wildebeest, following instinct rather than observation, march straight ahead, into lions, or down a ravine, or through a thicket teeming with tsetse flies. Later, the zebras appear again, tails flicking, ears relaxed, as if to say, well, we did try to warn them. Of course, the wildebeest aren't innocent either. During river crossings, zebras often hesitate, cautious of crocodiles, scanning the banks for patterns in the current. Wildebeest, however, driven by momentum and crowd pressure, plunge in. And in their wild scramble, they sometimes trample zebra foals underfoot or block return paths, forcing the striped family units into dangerous territory. These are not acts of evil, they are acts of survival. In a world where a moment's delay can mean death, every species watches out for its own first. And yet, they keep marching together. Because for all their squabbles and sabotage, the benefits of this uneasy alliance outweigh the risks. Zebras deter ambushes. Wildebeest reduce the odds of being targeted. Even their feeding styles are complementary. Zebras tear off the tall, coarse grass with their strong upper teeth, leaving behind shorter, softer shoots that the wildebeest prefer. One clears the field, the other grazes the aftermath. It's an accidental coordination that benefits both, a partnership of contrast. This partnership extends even into parenting. At times, zebra mares have been seen shielding lone wildebeest calves from jackals, circling them with snorts and kicks until the mother returns. And wildebeest mothers, ever the overreactive guardians, have been known to charge at hyenas sniffing too close to zebra foals. Perhaps it's empathy, or perhaps it's simple math. Fewer predators feeding on neighbors means fewer sniffing around your own. Of course, not all species tolerate this messy diplomacy. Elephants, towering and unbothered, often bulldoze through both herds without distinction. They clear paths through thickets, knock down trees and drink first. Allies of neither, rulers of all. Gazelles, light-footed and nervous, tend to orbit the larger herds, using their mass for cover, but keeping just enough distance to sprint away at the first sign of trouble. And giraffes, aloof and high above it all, watch with blank expressions, their slow chewing betraying no concern for the politics beneath them. Still, it is the zebra-wildebeest dynamic that most captures the complexity of the migration. It is not a story of predator versus prey, but of partner versus partner, of shared danger and divided goals, of creatures learning to live with the frustrating habits of their companions because the alternative is worse. And as the sun lowers once more, casting long shadows across the land, the herd slow. Grazing resumes. Foals and calves nuzzle beside tired mothers. The tension of the day fades, but it never vanishes completely. Tomorrow they will move again, together, not because they like each other, but because alone they wouldn't survive. But their partnership will soon be tested like never before, because ahead lies the darkest hour of the migration. Not drought, not predators, but night itself, and the ghostly predators that hunt in its cloak. Dusk does not arrive in the Serengeti as a gentle guest. It descends like a veil being drawn across the eyes of the land. Shadows stretch and bleed into one another until they consume everything, turning golden grass into black blades and dust into smoke. The air cools rapidly. The wind shifts direction, and the temperature drop carries with it something ancient, something every wildebeest and zebra can feel in their bones. The day belongs to the herds, but the night belongs to hunters. As the last rays of sunlight pull away, silence takes hold. Not from peace, but from apprehension. The herds stop their grazing and huddle tighter, restless and twitching, ears pricked toward every rustle, every breeze. To us it may feel still, but to them the night is alive with ghosts. A lion's growl will not be heard here, not yet. The true horror begins with nothing at all. No sound, no warning, just sudden absence. A missing calf, a fractured formation, a heartbeat that doesn't come back. Night vision reveals what the naked eye misses. Across the vast black expanse, the lions rise. Not one by one, but as a pride, fanning out in a crescent shape like a trap closing around something unaware. The lionesses move low and quiet, their bodies cutting through the grass like drifting smoke. They are not roaring, they are not running, they are patient. Every step is calculated, every movement designed to avoid sound. In darkness, even the crunch of a dry leaf can sabotage a kill, and so they glide. Nearby, the wildebeest shift nervously, their heads bobbing in the dark. Their eyes are wide, but their vision is poor. They rely on motion, on the signals of their neighbors. One flinch can ignite 100 legs, but that's exactly what the lions wait for. The panic. The moment when the herd becomes a wave and the stragglers are left behind. One misstep, one calf too slow, and the game begins. Then the silence breaks. A dull thump, a sharp gasp. Somewhere in the dark, a body hits the earth and the herd erupts. Dust clouds spiral up into the starlit air, and thunder rolls across the plains once more, but this time, not from hooves hitting dry ground, but from fear cracking the earth wide open. The kill is quick, not because of mercy, but because of precision. A lioness's jaws around the throat, weight on the chest. Movement stops. Only the twitching of grass remains. But the lions are not alone in this shadow kingdom. Hyenas, those misunderstood tricksters of the night, have been watching. They wait for the lionesses to feed, not fully, just enough to relax. Then they move in like drunken soldiers, yipping, laughing, charging, retreating. Their antics seem comedic, even foolish, but there's method beneath the madness. They test the lioness's mood, push boundaries, and when they sense weakness, perhaps a lone lioness separated from her pride, or a smaller kill not worth the fight, they strike. A skirmish breaks out. Hyenas dive in from all angles, some pulling at the carcass, others baiting the lion. The growls are guttural, primal, a sound that carries the weight of rivalry older than language. Teeth flash in the moonlight. One hyena yelps as a claw rakes across its side. But another gains ground, and soon the lioness backs away, snarling. Victory by attrition. The hyenas feed, squabbling and snapping, tearing the meat into ribbons before vanishing into the dark, the sound of bone cracking fading into the wind. And then, from the far side of the plain, a softer predator slinks through the grass, one that neither chases nor challenges, but simply waits for everything to end. The leopard. Unlike lions, leopards are solitary phantoms, operating in the narrow margins of conflict. When all other predators are fighting or resting, the leopard appears like a shadow that forgot to vanish. It will not hunt wildebeest tonight, not if lions are near, but a jackal pup wandering too far, or a bird rooted in sleep. Those are fair game. And what the leopard cannot eat now, it will hoist into a tree for later, far from the scavengers and ground-bound thieves. Even smaller predators claim the night. Genets with their twitching tails, owls with their impossibly silent flight, aardwolves lapping up termites under the cover of stars. While the mighty rip flesh from bone, these quieter players harvest their own version of bounty, unnoticed but never unimportant. Each one is part of the ecosystem's equation, each one playing its role in the ballet of darkness. Meanwhile, the herd continues to move, even if just slightly. They rarely sleep, not in this landscape. Some stand in shifts, eyes barely closed. Others lie down briefly, only to rise again minutes later, their ears catching the whisper of grass disturbed too close. The calves nestle under bellies, the foals press into the flanks of mares. No one sleeps deeply, not here, not now. The night doesn't allow it. And as the hours pass, the cool air grows heavier with dew. Crickets hum louder. perhaps emboldened by the fading of feline hunger. The constellations wheel overhead, ancient watchers of this recurring ritual. The migration doesn't halt at night. It holds its breath, waiting for morning, waiting for the return of sight. But just before dawn, when the darkness is thickest and hope seems furthest, the unexpected happens. A rogue male lion, driven from his pride, charges into a group of dozing zebras. It is not stealthy. It is not strategic. It is desperate. The attack fails, and he is kicked back into the dust, limping. The zebras scatter, but one lingers. A stallion, teeth bared, stomping with fury. This is the secret no one tells you about night. It's not just predators who own it. Sometimes the prey fights back. As the first sliver of sun peeks over the eastern rim, the world shifts once more. Shadows retreat. Shapes take form. The ghostly blur of movement returns to texture, and those who survive the night exhale, but not in relief, only in preparation. Because dawn does not mean safety. It only means a different kind of danger. By now, the migration has shed its glamour. The cinematic stampedes, the river crossings, the golden light filtering through endless hooves. All of it fades beneath a new atmosphere. Attrition. The plains are quieter now, not from peace, but from exhaustion. The herds still move, but they no longer surge with the same energy. The sharp edges of hunger and thirst have dulled their rhythm into something slower, heavier. It is in this chapter, in the stillness between battles, that we begin to see the true cost of the journey. Not in numbers, but in the limps, the scars, and the empty spaces where mothers used to walk beside their young. Here, away from the camera-ready chaos, the survivors tell the more haunting stories. A single wildebeest drags its back leg through the dust, its hoof trailing like an afterthought. The joint is ballooned with infection, likely from a thorn or a lion's graze, but still it moves, head low, eyes dull but alert. Every few minutes it stops and lifts the injured leg for relief, balancing awkwardly on 3 limbs. This individual should be dead by now, but it has not only evaded predators, it has outwitted them. A few nights earlier, a lion pride tracked it, watching as it lagged behind. But as the lionesses circled, ready to lunge, the wildebeest did something extraordinary. It collapsed, not from pain but deliberately into a gully. The lions hesitated. In a terrain filled with thorny acacias and uneven ground, ambush becomes guesswork. They passed it by. That night the limping wildebeest survived, not through speed or strength, but through strategy. There are no medals for the clever here, only another day of breath. Further north, a zebra foal, barely a month old, stands alone at the edge of a watering hole. Its sides are hollow with dehydration, its mane disheveled, but its posture is steady. Its mother, likely taken by a crocodile at the last crossing, vanished 2 nights ago. The foal has wandered ever since, trailing the shadows of other mares, hoping to be adopted. Adoption in zebra society isn't common, but it happens, especially among older mares who have recently lost their own. And luck in the wild often favors the desperate. As the foal follows a small group at a distance, one mare turns back, then waits. There is a pause, a stare. Then she walks toward the foal, nudges it. They walk together. The foal has a mother again, not by blood but by grace. But not every orphan finds a miracle. Some fall into the margins, where vultures wait not in trees but in patience. They circle above the stragglers like slow-moving clocks, measuring time in heartbeats. There's a grim intelligence to their behavior, an understanding that nature's leftovers are often the most abundant. One young gnu, eyes half closed from infection, lies beside a dried-up stream. Its breathing is shallow, no predators in sight, just gravity and inevitability. When the end comes, it will be silent, unnoticed, absorbed by the land like spilled water. Predators, too, feel the weight of the journey. Behind the myth of unstoppable killers lie their own tolls. In the eastern corridor of the migration route, an old lion limps through the brush, his mane faded to straw, his face scored with wounds both fresh and fossilized. His canines are worn, one paw leaves a crooked track. He no longer leads the charge during hunts. He follows, waiting to steal scraps from his pride, who now eye him with quiet impatience. Soon he will be forced out, and when that happens, his days will shorten quickly. In lion society, age is not honored, it is exiled. Even the crocodiles are not immune to the erosion of survival. Down by a stagnant bend in the Mara, a crocodile rests on a sun-bleached rock. Its jaw is askew, the upper palate cracked in two from a wildebeest kick during a failed kill. The wound has half healed, grotesque, twisted, but enough to allow survival. Hunting, however, has become a game of precision. It no longer lunges at anything that moves. It waits for the injured, the last, the ones who cannot kick. In this paradox, the predator becomes the scavenger, and the scavenger becomes the predator. And scattered among these dramas are the quiet stories, not of fights but of resilience. A mother wildebeest who lost one calf, but gave birth again a week later. A zebra stallion who stood between a lion and 3 foals, receiving deep gashes down his side, but surviving long enough for the young to escape. Even an impala who, after losing both of its ears to frostbite the previous year, still leads a group with nothing but body language and posture. In the Serengeti, heroism is not broadcast. It walks without applause. But perhaps the strangest tale belongs to a bird, a lilac-breasted roller, often seen as a flash of color amid the dust. One such roller has followed the migration for nearly 200 kilometers, staying just close enough to swoop down on insects flushed from the grasses by hooves. It is not a passenger. It is a tactician. Each time the herds stop, the bird feeds. Each time they move, it flies ahead to the next perch. It never travels with others. It does not call. It simply follows, a lone thread of color stitched into the journey's gray tapestry. As the migration nears its turning point, the numbers begin to dwindle. Not all losses are visible. Some vanish into grass, some into silence. The journey takes what it must. It always has. But for those who survive, each day forward is a triumph. Not of dominance, but of endurance. Survival here is not an act of glory. It is the slow refusal to stop. And now the land begins to change once more. Ahead lies the swollen belt of the return route, green again after fresh rains, shimmering with heat. But this time the danger doesn't sleep in the grass. It hovers above, because the sky has been watching. And now it descends with talons. There is no banner stretched across the horizon to announce the end. No final stampede. No great crescendo of triumph. The migration simply bends, turns, folds in on itself like a wind-carved ripple in the dust, as if nature were quietly drawing a circle in the earth with a hoof. What began as a push toward promise, through rivers and predators, storms and droughts, has arrived at its quiet climax. Not at a destination, but at a return. Because here, in the open wilderness where time is measured not in clocks but in seasons, there is no finish line, only the curve of necessity. The grass, once grazed down to soil, rises again with the return of the rains. A blush of green creeps across the plains like spilled paint, delicate and defiant. It's not lush, not yet, but it's enough. Enough to signal to every nose in the wind that the south is calling once more. Calves born months ago now stretch into adolescence, their legs longer, their instincts sharper. Foals that once staggered now gallop with confidence, ears twitching toward the songs of distant waterholes. Lions lounge heavier, bellies round, scars healing. Crocodiles return to their deeper pools, digestion underway, waiting again. Even the hyenas yawn in the golden light, as if the chaos of the crossing was a distant dream. But it will come again, and they know it. As the herds begin to wheel southward, the circle renews not with thunder, but with a whisper. A slow realization that what was once behind is now ahead again. Paths once carved in panic are traced back in rhythm. Familiar riverbanks appear, not as obstacles this time, but as landmarks in a map written in instinct. Some calves will cross them for the first time with memory baked into their DNA. Others will recognize the shape of the trees from the corner of their vision and keep moving, not with fear, but with purpose. And yet, not all is repetition. Each loop adds something new, a learned shortcut, a scar, a loss. The zebras at the front of the herd now include a foal whose mother was claimed by lions weeks ago. The wildebeest lagging at the back is the same one who outwitted the pride by collapsing into a gully, now limping with a stiffness that betrays experience. Survival here is not just a matter of avoiding death. It's a matter of remembering how close it came and adapting. Even the land remembers. Burned scars from lightning fires still darken the acacia trunks. Bones picked clean now dot the long grass like white punctuation marks in a story told without words. Dung piles, broken horns, scattered feathers, remnants of the last cycle, slowly fading into the soil, becoming nutrients for the new. Death feeds the grass feeds the herds feed everything else. This is not metaphor, It is mathematics. And so the movement continues, not forward, not backward, but around and around, as it always has. The loop is survival's signature. A circle not of return, but of persistence. Even when the predators sleep, the sky clears, the wind cools, the need to move never disappears. It hums beneath the skin of every hoofed traveler. Motion is medicine, to stop is to rot. But woven into this endlessness is something achingly beautiful. In the early morning, before the sun fully rises, the herds move as one massive silhouette across the horizon, a living tide of muscle and breath. From a distance, the noise is strangely soothing. The crunch of grass, the low murmur of calls, the rhythmic drumming of hooves, as if the land itself has a heartbeat. In these moments, the migration becomes more than survival. It becomes a pulse, a breath inhaled by the earth. And then, just as serenity threatens to lull us into reverie, nature provides its next twist. A sudden downpour on the western ridges triggers new grass growth in an unexpected region. The path veers. Predators adjust. Hyenas lift their heads, sniffing the change. Lions shift their resting spots. Birds take to the air, redrawing invisible maps. Even the insects, those forgotten passengers of the journey, begin to hatch in different numbers, sensing opportunity. The loop is not perfect. It wobbles, adapts, bends. A circle, yes, but never a copy. The question remains, why? Why march in this ancient circuit year after year, enduring teeth, thirst, fire, birth and burial? Why not settle, graze and rest? The answer is both simple and profound, because the land won't let them. Grass here dies as quickly as it grows. Water evaporates within days. Predators concentrate in areas with predictable prey. The only way to survive is to stay moving. And in moving, life becomes a chase, not of predator versus prey, but of time versus scarcity. And so we arrive not at the end, but at the beginning again. The herds move south, the grasses regrow. The same rivers will be crossed, the same lions will lie in wait, and new calves will drop to the ground like rain. But it will be different. It always is. This is the gift and curse of the loop, a dance that never ends, a rhythm that never rests. The Great Migration is not a journey. It is a living circle of endurance. A story written not in words, but in footsteps across a continent. Its characters are not named, its arcs are not plotted, but still, it plays out, again and again, beneath the gaze of vultures, the hum of flies, the strike of talons, and the thunder of hooves. And even now, as this documentary draws to its close, the plains are still moving. The sun has risen, the air is warming. Somewhere out there, a newborn wildebeest is already trying to stand, shaky and blinking at the world. And somewhere nearby, eyes are watching, hungry, silent and patient, because the loop never ends.